Ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to the Hindu Lit for Life 2019. We begin with my favorite topic and a hot button issue, Uncharted Terrain, Reclaiming Female Prerogatives. Please welcome on stage Parvathy and Sunandha Raghunathan. Malayalam actor Parvathy is among the new crop of actors redefining Indian cinema. In a career spanning over a decade, she has played various memorable characters in Malayalam, Tamil, Kannada, and Hindi cinema and has 2 state film awards to her credit. Most notably, she is one of the founding members of Kerala's Women in Cinema Collective, arguably the first and only film industry body for women artists in the country. In conversation with her is Ms. Raghunathan, actor, writer, and director with over 13 years of experience in Chennai's English theatre scene. One of the founders of theatre group Gudugudupukari, some of her acclaimed plays are Mundiri Kotte, Notes to a Young Actor, and Bad Hindu. She also wrote the screenplay for the critically acclaimed 2016 film Irudi Sutru. I request Ms. Raghunathan to take the session forward.
Good morning, everyone. First of all, thank you for being here. I know there are a lot more talks going on, and I appreciate the time you've taken. Happy Pongal to everyone. And my name is Sunandha, as she said, and I've seen more faces here now than I've seen at any theatre fest of mine. So clearly, you're not here for me. So I will yield the floor to Parvathy.
Good morning, everyone. It's definitely still early morning for me. Long working hours, but this is probably the most refreshing break one can take to the sharpest lit fest that you can come and speak about so many topics that are close to you. I'm happy to be with Sunandha here because Sam and I go way back. When we met, we'll talk about that as well. And we've been talking ever since. We've been in conversation ever since. So I hope that our conversation, like it says that she's in conversation with me, but what you will see is 2 friends discussing a topic that's really close to our heart. So I hope you'll have a good time. Thank you for coming.
Right, let's get cracking. So our session is called Uncharted Terrain, Reclaiming Female Prerogatives. A mouthful. So let's talk about why we started talking about that and what prompted this title per se.
I think it's a very volatile time. I think every generation would vouch for their generation to go through a volatile time at every year, different junctures. But last year, especially 2017, 2018, has really ignited a conversation as to where we are as gender. The conversation on gender has really expanded, and there is consistent awareness on it. It's just consistent. We have had conversation before this, obviously. We've had such venues where it has been discussed, but the popular media as well as other spaces such as this, it has not been so consistent and so stubborn in the fact that we are not going to stop talking about it. And I think that it's important for us to branch out, not just about, let's say, safety at workplace, or what it means to be a woman or a man or a transgender in different places, but also talk about how travel informs us in our day-to-day affairs. It's very close to me because I think travel is mostly considered a luxury for a lot of people, and I kept thinking how cinema in its content is still not up to par in showing what travel can do to individuals. So I thought it will be really interesting for us to talk about what travel is for people generally, as well as why it's important for women to reclaim that space as theirs as well. So I think that's what got us started in this conversation.
Yeah, so when we were thinking about what to talk about, obviously we're talking about women's issues. And Parvathy being an avid traveler, for those who know her well, or probably it's there in the media as well, I'm not sure. And I'm a traveler as well. And we were thinking, because this is a lit fest, let's talk about books, right? And so we were looking at travel books. We were looking for books on travel written by women. And what was shocking for us is there isn't that much material written by women on travel, especially if they're traveling alone. And all the material that we could actually lay our hands on happened to be white women, privileged women traveling. Very few books of women by color on travel. And we thought, okay, even the blogs, and of course, Instagram is a great leveler. So right now, everyone's traveling and everyone's posting. But then, call me old-fashioned or call me biased, I don't consider that literature yet. So we were only looking at literature. And we thought, that's interesting. That's why we thought, let's talk about uncharted terrain, because as women of color, by that I mean women not white, let's talk about travel. Let's talk about women traveling. And then we thought, as she said, travel is seen as privilege. Travel is seen as luxury. Travel is seen as something you do when you've paid your health insurance and done all the wonderful adulting things one must do. So
Wonderful indeed. Wonderful adulting.
so we thought, okay, how come? So let me put this question to you, because I asked her this question. In cinema, when we see women traveling, be it Charlie, her movie itself, be it Queen, or be it Rani Padmini, another Malayalam film, we are seeing women of a certain strata, upper middle class, perhaps even fringing on rich traveling. Whereas when you have middle class characters, like the one in Takeoff, the nurse, somehow when she travels, it's not travel for pleasure. It's not amateur traveling. She's traveling for work. Can you talk a little bit about how cinema deals with travel and women traveling?
This may not seem like a critical situation when you're talking about travel in cinema and how it's depicted for women and men. The disparity is very evident, but we kind of choose to not look at it. We've spoken about this before, but how when we see men traveling in cinema, it's usually not running away from their problems, or it's not that, it's mostly soul searching. But when women are traveling, it's mostly towards either a man or finding something like some closure from a relationship, love, something to do with that. And that's Charlie for you. And that's even Rani Padmini, where the wife is going after the husband and trying to get some answers. And there's one character which is played by Rima. I'm not sure how many of you have watched these films, Charlie and Rani Padmini and all these films. Takeoff is another film that says a different story. Here we are talking about women who travel for work because they don't have a choice. They have to travel. Now, Samira in Takeoff has to travel because it's a really sad scenario for nurses in India, nurses in Kerala especially. They don't get paid. They get paid lesser than the wonderful maids who come to our houses and clean our house. They are paid 6,000, 7,000 rupees a month. So when they get to know that in a war-torn area, they might get 40,000 a month, they can pay off the loan. It doesn't matter that they're putting their life at risk, but they still need to travel. So Samira just did whatever it took to travel, even if it was sort of convincing herself that, okay, that man loves me, let me just marry him so that I can go. Again, a question on the social nature of how women who are divorced are looked at. These questions and these issues are more pregnant in a situation like that when she travels, and how she comes to terms or how she tackles a hostage-like situation when she does not have the financial comfort and luxury. What happens? What kind of individual soul searching happens for a person, let's not just say women, when you don't have the luxury of knowing that, okay, I have the money to fall back, I have the option to go back whenever I want. And I think such stories are so rare that for the audience, and I truly still believe, and I repeat this and I don't intend to stop anytime soon, that cinema as an art form with the visual narrative, when you sit in a dark room and you watch it for 2 hours, even if we are all smart people, we use our logic, we know that they're acting, we still start laughing with them, crying with them, feeling with them. this can affect your psyche and your understanding of certain things. It either cements or it makes you question, and that's what art should do, right? Was it Banksy who said art should comfort the disturbed and disturb the comforted? And that's what cinema can do, really good cinema can do. The other ones can numb you real well. So I feel there is a huge dearth in such films which can show women who are not of a very comfortable financial strata, which is why I think content now needs to be questioned. Now that brings me to a personal space. Like when I travel, when I started traveling, that was 2015 when I started traveling. I know it's very easy to consider when as an actress you're really well off financially. I was terrible. I still am terrible with money. And I had very less savings. But it was a call from my soul. It was like I couldn't stay in one place anymore. I didn't want to stay in my house anymore. And I told my boyfriend, I said, I need to move. I need to go. It's a physical reaction. I don't know. I don't like to be here. I was going through depression. And he said, so go. And it just never felt like a choice. I don't know why. For a person who is looked at as independent and bold for speaking her mind, it was still a stifling feeling that, oh, I didn't know that I had the option to actually go. I had to have my boyfriend tell me, oh, so go. I'm like, I really can go? Okay. So I used up 90% of my savings to plan from scratch a trip to Europe, which lasted about 40 days. From, I think, 7 or 8 countries that I went. I went a little far, with that. I was too desperate. And that started this transformation in me. And I never realized travel can be such a therapeutic, painfully therapeutic experience. And I see that women who are traveling, who have either, let's say, are financially independent or not, are not shown or they're not talking about their experiences enough. And as much as we can bring an ICC in our workplace, as much as we can make such arrangements made in our day-to-day lives where women can be safe, safety in traveling externally, it reflects in traveling internally. It does. And that's something that we haven't given enough credit. So that's why I feel, as a person who represents the film industry, there's a huge dearth in it. So I'm inviting all of you, in fact, for this talk. We watched a lot of films. We watched Thelma and Louise and Rani Padmini, my movies again, Charlie and Takeoff. And most of the films we see that women, when they travel, they're traveling either running away from a situation which has to do with romance, but not quite with their own soul searching. So that's a question. Should we ask, should we demand for more such content in books and in cinema? Because that's what will nourish our understanding.
It would, definitely. But I think the Archie and Hallmark cards mafia would completely shut it down because they can't sell teddy bears and greeting cards anymore. So, as she said, what was truly remarkable when we were watching films with narratives of female traveling, most of the time it was a broken engagement or running away from an unwanted marriage or fiancé leaving someone, a husband leaving someone. Whereas when men traveled, being the relentless feminist that I am, I saw it as a narrative of this man searching for the woman so he can enslave her, so he can put a ring on her finger and say, you're mine. So he can tie a tali around her neck and say, you're mine, sort of fence her in.
My friend Sunandha.
Yeah,
everyone.
but then I'm a feminist killjoy. So coming to the second part of our wordy title, you say the word prerogative. And at this point, I think being in this room, being you and me, I think we need to sort of check our privilege a little bit. Because savings, you use 90% and you traveled. But I'm not even talking about the financial aspect of it, although that does play a huge part in having a woman want to travel, the financial independence, or even wherewithal, having that much spare money, right? But more than that, when you're looking at, say, for instance, middle-class women traveling, what about the familial structure? For instance, you are unencumbered, the way I see it. You don't have a child. You don't have a 9 to 5 job, say, so you can actually refuse a movie or put it on hold, whatever it takes. You are free to leave, as am I. But for a mother who probably has a child going to school, even the second grade, can be daunting to just up and leave, which is why we say, I'm wondering about that word prerogative. Can you expand on that a little bit?
It's a very sensitive area. I feel you and I, both of us, don't have a place really to discuss what it is like to be a mother, because I feel like I would offend mothers. And I have my friends who are mothers who always say that you really don't know what it is like once you create a human out of your body, what changes in you. That's another kind of travel, isn't it? But I can definitely reflect upon what my friends have told me. There are two kinds of mothers that I have seen. One who, even if they go out and do their job, even if they choose to stay at home, they still feel they're not doing enough. The guilt that comes along with being a mother, and I'm not a good mother enough. And I know there are exceptions, but let's talk about the majority that I've seen, definitely, is that even the familial structure always has this magnifying lens on the woman. Are you doing enough? You go out for two, like the most educated, one of my friends who's a lawyer, who for the first time went out for coffee with me. We went back home, and her mother, who's a lovely woman, had this expression on her face like, fine, are you done with your outing? Are you done? Like, we went for 2 hours just to have coffee outside and come back. And I saw that she was standing, she was getting sucked into the guilt. And I kept thinking, if this can happen to one of the smartest, most educated, most financially liberal women, I'm wondering what happens to other women who don't have any of that, and who have probably education from a certain street smartness, which I do credit a lot of women with, because they know how to handle people without actually having to go to an institution, and they have that kind of an education. So, family structure, judgments from the outside, from the inside is definitely conditioned. So, how do we start talking to women and men? Because men have to be equally informed about this for them to realize that they cannot. Sometimes certain questions can shackle you down. So it's like, really, you want to go away for 4 days? How about just 2 days? Like, that's my weekend, then I can look after the kids. And some of the men I know who are husbands, my friends, saying that, okay, so I should babysit, and then my friends have to say, you're not babysitting when it's your own child. Like, really, like, it's the same thing that I do. And it's not even that they're evil people. They are actually not informed, they're not educated. We don't have enough conversations in the family. Like, I'm probably not the most liked in my family. I know that because I always have questions. Like, my father says something, I'll be like, why? I'm that constant, question of why surrounds whenever I enter a room. But why? But why did you have to do that? But why? And so my dad had to change a lot of things, even being this by default feminist, which he didn't realize. He is probably the only feminist that I have seen in my family. Um, Even he had to change a lot of things when he told my mom, to the extent that my mother, again, very liberated, doesn't like going out even by safety pin without my father. She's actually said that. I just like it better if he's there. I just like it that I don't want to drive. Let him drive. He's there. So, he's there. So why should I drive? And that's still there. Like, my mom still doesn't drive. Like, she has a driving license, but she does. So, question is, what is prerogative really? Do you understand it even if you're educated? The word prerogative, to own it, to understand it as a person. Forget gender. Like I told Sunandha yesterday, I am changing this idea of calling men and women. Now I'm trying to level it by calling everyone just people. Anyone. Gender is a detail, but we still need to address the issues that has demarcated gender every single day, in every single second, where we are treated differently as a woman and a man and a transgender. It's just, we need to level it. It's like degenderizing has to happen now. So we blur the lines with these conversations. It may seem ironic, it may seem like, oh, it's the opposite, we're talking more about it. So my question is, even to myself, how much do I know about how much can I claim my prerogative? Do I have an understanding of what my place is, how it feels to occupy space? the power in occupying space, sharing the space. So I feel like even with the most liberated, even with me, there is a body language that changed with travel. I thought I was a bold woman. That's what everyone called me before I started traveling. So you're bold, you're outspoken, you're brave. Not like I realized I'm not any of that, really, till I was on a footpath in Paris with 20-kilo backpack, not knowing where to go, considering whether I should just take a flight back home. This has been a mistake. Nobody speaks English. Everyone's rude. There is racism everywhere, and nobody likes me. I can feel that I'm sweating in January. It's -degree, but I'm sweating and it's crystallizing, and I'm not dressed for the occasion, and I'm lost. And I realized that, oh, this is a test. I got past it one day. The second day, I didn't leave the hostel. I just did not have the energy to leave and face the world. This is the bold woman talking. So when I was put to test with this travel, I realized that this is the way you can peel it away. Coming back to the middle class women, men, or anyone traveling, the finance is definitely an aspect. And I kept thinking about it because I can sit here, be really aware of my privilege. But there are so many opportunities. I still don't consider myself financially really affluent, but I look up these websites, which are volunteer-based websites, where you can travel abroad, where maybe you just have to find a sponsor for your flight tickets, but you can go there and your stay and your food, everything's taken care of, and you have a human experience working in a museum. I went to Iceland, again, broke me. Like there was nothing left in my bank account after that. But when I saw is that there are children really traveling from different parts of the world who are working there in wildlife preservation centers, museums, because it's the midnight summer in Iceland, and they don't have money. They're really not affluent. Their parents are not well off, but they still have an open mind to children traveling, girls traveling, and getting a human experience. Because when they come back, they're shifted. The mantle shifts when you travel alone. Alone being the key word.
See, I think I spent the last year in London, and I was greedy. I walked in every park I could. I slept in every park I could. And everyone told me, "Are you crazy? You're sleeping in parks." I said, "No, I'll never get to sleep in a park again." But I kept thinking, how is it that London, which is such a greedy capitalist place, really, albeit Europe and all that, it's hell on earth, really. But how is it that they have so much greenery and we don't? Right? And I kept thinking, why is it that we have so many temples mushrooming on every street corner with bathroom tile Ganeshas, as though we don't have 1,000-year-old temples in this city? And I came to a conclusion. I realized that our culture stems from religion. Their culture stems from nature. If you look at English poetry, every English movement is the romantic movement. They are writing about trees, whereas we have the bhakti movement. We are singing about gods, right? Which is why we venerate temples, bringing it to travel. When a middle-class woman or a middle-class man perhaps wants to travel, their travel is kshetrams. They go do the 108 Vishnu temples, the 5,000 Shiva temples, the street corner Ganesha temple. All of that is sanctioned. It's allowed. A woman says, "I want to go to Kalahasti." Great, go for it. A woman says, "I want to see waterfalls." You think, let's do it as a family, because somehow temples are still seen as safe spaces. Nothing bad happens in a temple, right? But bad things can happen outside. So I think when we're talking about prerogative, when we're talking about permissions or any of that, we also have to recognize that our culture stems from religion. Everything starts there. Our art starts there. When I say culture, that's what I mean. Our music starts there. Our dance starts there. And therefore, our travel also for the middle class who perhaps don't have the privilege of saying, let me just up and leave in January and go wherever I want to go, they can go. They can go to Tirupati. They can go to Ayyappa temple now and see the Makaravilakku. They can go and so on and so forth. How do you think that will change?
See, I wonder, and this is totally taking it into a debate space, and I really look forward to hearing your thoughts when we go into the interactive session. I feel like religion is it's a part of our culture that we can never deny, right? Like even for me, even when I say even for me, I was raised a Hindu. I do not quite believe I have a religion at this point. I don't subscribe to one. I don't. I just swing back and forth from being an atheist to an agnostic to sometimes being super religious and spiritual. And I'm allowing myself that it's my private space. But that has never informed my travel somehow. Somehow travel has come from a space of wanting to stretch my individuality. I just want to stretch and explore the limits that I can reach. And the qualities or the traits that I wish to explore that I realized only after I started traveling is empathy. Empathy is a huge thing because when you travel, you don't quite know how you judge others. Like I thought I'm a very nice person, quite not. I judged so harsh. And it informs you about your own personality a lot. And even with religion, like you meet so many travelers who come, who are extremely devout, like Christians and Muslims, and they would start talking to you about their religion, and you realize that you can be a listener. So that's an individual space of traveling. But for, let's say, my mother, who, for the first time when she said she wants to travel, it was this Buddhist monastery. And it was, my father still wants to travel, but he wants to go to Varanasi. These are places he wants to go before, he says his time's up. And I used to be like, really, don't you want to go, like, you don't want to go to Ajmer, or you don't want to go to all these festivals, maybe, like, not religious festivals, other festivals, or go to historic sites? He said, no, I just want to. So I thought, okay, at least in that capacity, if a woman or a man can say, let me travel alone, it is still travel. I still would say, give them that pass. I don't want to lay down too many rules for, even if a woman says that I'm keeping this vrit and I want to go to this temple, and if that is supposed to be a very a solitary thing, even better. It's still a journey within herself, and I think that needs to be allowed. So be it, because otherwise probably she will not even get out of the house. Otherwise, because it's still considered in many families that I see that women traveling alone is unnecessary. Why don't you travel with people? Why do you have to go alone? Why did you have to live alone? My mother asks. If you love me, you would stay with me. I said it's not mutually exclusive, mom. Like I can love you and want to live alone. So the same thing with travel. I realized that, okay, if Amma wants to travel alone, if my aunts want to travel alone to a temple, it's still travel, good. That might give them the taste of what it feels like to be alone with themselves. And this brings me to a very key point, which I think is very important at this juncture we are in discussing gender politics, is that we don't know how to be alone with our own debates in our head about gender. And that's what travel allows me to do. I still travel for work a lot. The flights I take, the number of flights, the different hotels I stay in, it's very disorienting. But it's also, it overwhelms me when I have to sit alone and I don't have to talk about work, that I realize the contradictions in what I do and say. And that's me as an artist. That's what I wanted to bring to the table today, is that not as a celebrity, not as someone who's spoken against the atrocities done to women, but as a human, how do I use art to inform my contradictions and then share it so that you all know that it's okay to contradict yourself. And that's how you grow. And for you to contradict, you may have to get out of your comfort space, and travel will do that for you. And that travel doesn't have to be Europe. That doesn't have to be London. That can even be 108 temples, Sam. Like, I feel that travel is still a travel outside of your regular routine space. And I think that's very underrated at this point.
No, I agree with you. That's what I was trying to say. That, whereas being staunch atheist that I am, I still go to temples because I see them as our museums. They are our living museums. Where else will they allow 1,000-year-old something to stand? They would have raised it to the ground by now to build a mall or a road, right? Whereas I know for a fact that 1,000-year-old mural will be safe because thank God for religion. But what I want to talk to you about is also what happens when you travel, right? Because so we were looking at books, and unfortunately or fortunately, I haven't read Eat, Pray, Love. So most of the books that I was reading were varied. They were travel essays. One was by Marta Gellhorn. It's called Travels with Myself and Another. She happened to be the wife of Ernest Hemingway. So, but she writes beautifully, and she talks about professional travel versus amateur travel. She happened to be a war correspondent at the time when war was a wonderfully profitable business. Not that it's ever been unprofitable, but she was during the Spanish Civil War, the First World War, Second World War. So, and she talks about professional travel, and she writes about horror journeys especially. She starts the book saying, how many times have you gone somewhere and heard someone say, is this why we've come this far? Or is that all there is? Or, my God, it's so loud. Or, where is the rest of it? Have we not heard it? We've gone there and we thought, yeah, I agree with you. Where is the rest of it? Is this what I'm supposed to be awed by? And so her entire book is absolute horror journeys. Hotel rooms filled with bugs, a guide who's supposed to drive her, who doesn't know how to drive. So she drives herself across East Africa. And a Chinese interpreter who firmly believes that tigers are vegetarian. He keeps telling her tigers are vegetarian. So she has this constant, every time she's down in the dumps, she reminds herself of Mr. Ma's tigers being vegetarian, and she feels happy once again. So in that sense, like you said, you find yourself when you are absolutely lost and you think, no, I can't go on anymore. Just playing devil's advocate, because you said it's a test, it's a crucible. Don't women have that every day? Don't you have it when you get off a 29C bus and you think, nah, I'm never going to leave the house again? Don't you have that when you finish a run and you think, nah, no, bro, I'll be fat, it's fine, I'm never going to run again. There's no need.
Well, that's a big point for sure. I agree with you. And again, being very aware of my privilege, I still feel that when I travel back from, let's say, there are different kinds of issues with regards to safety when you're abroad. There are safety concerns for sure. But it's a different thing when you're taking a flight, let's say, from another country to Dubai, which is like always usually the connection to Cochin. I somehow feel like my body language shifts. Like something that I can sit like this in the flight, suddenly in Cochin, the flight to Kochi, I'm sitting like this. A little shrunk, a little more. I'll take a little less space, just to be safe. I just don't want any more confrontation. I'm tired of it. But then if it comes to it, of course. Just what travel, when I say that travel tests you, I'll just tell you an incident that happened to me. New York, subway. That's another museum, living museum, if you go on the subways. And I am a firm believer of when you're spending, let's say, 2 weeks in a country, you need to take a class or something. Just go for a class or work somewhere, well, that would be illegal, but just do something that will make you a part of that society a little bit. Just stay there. Try to live there. So I went for, well, it was a workout class, but it was still a very spiritual workout class of some sort. So every morning
What's a spiritual workout? It sounds like spiritual politics.
Let's not go there. It's all about guiding you as you move towards your pain, not away from your pain and all that. Let's not go there. So, that was in 2018. And every morning I take a bus from New Jersey. That will be about an hour 15. That commute would give me time to read and then also talk to my fellow passengers. And there's several instances that happen that can really open your eyes as to how inequality is almost everywhere in America or any other place that you consider the first world nations. I took the subway many times, like different connections to get to my class. And I realized this famous thing that they say, in New York, no one has time for anyone. We don't look at anyone's face. And I actually witnessed that. I've only heard about it and read about it, but I was actually witnessing it. Everyone's doing their own thing. A guy sitting next to me is choreographing dance moves. Nobody else seems to be bothered with his dance moves. Somebody else is singing. Somebody else is without shirt or pants. Doesn't matter. We are all just in our own space. We know where we are going. So this lady of Asian descent, she's sitting down and in a big paper bag. What we didn't realize, none of us realized, that she had a coffee mug, a takeaway coffee mug inside. We didn't realize till it broke the paper bag and it was coffee all over her and the entire area. People immediately shifted away from her, but none of them offered her a towel or anything. She's literally burning, like, because it was really hot coffee. I'm sitting a little away from her, opposite. So I have my workout bag and everything. So I have tissues, paper towels and everything. So my immediate reflex was to go in and give her this. And you'd expect the lady to smile and say thank you, or just not smile, just say thank you, or nothing, just take the damn towel. But she didn't. She actually pulled back. It was shocking for her that someone's engaging with her, that what is your ulterior motive, lady? Like, why are you giving me this towel? I was like, I'm reaching out from my seat and she's not taking it. For next 5 seconds, which felt like eons, she's not taking it. And everyone else is looking at me like, what's wrong with you? Like, we don't talk to people here. Like, we don't make eye contact. Look away.
There's a rule in London, only crazy people engage.
Engage.
In public transport.
Enter us. So after like 5 minutes, 5 seconds, she takes it, and very reluctantly, of course, and no one else still engaging. Until I left the station, she was still looking at me, the corner of her eyes. Something's wrong with her. There must be something else. Will she try to steal my wallet? Will she do something like that? Now, because obviously I'm still a person of color. I'm still not white. I'm a South Asian woman sitting there. I could do anything. I could be anyone. So it informs you. See, and here I'm sitting on a stage and talking to you guys, and there's like this impression that I am known to all of you as a celebrity, as an artist, or whatever. But over there, I am nothing. And that is something that stays with you. It stays with you that people are scared of sympathy, empathy, love, reaching out, and human connection in certain places. And certain places, and then it also, you've never really experienced racism unless it's like very subtle on a daily basis. How you are not given, even if you're first in the line, you're not given the cup of coffee first, even at a Starbucks. Or especially at Starbucks these days. That's the sad scenario. So these are things that test you. I was infuriated that day that I was trying to help, and she thought I could have, because it was very evident in how she was looking at me that she was not happy that I engaged. She would rather be burning in hot coffee than take that paper towel from me. But then it informs me, like 2-3 days later, I would reflect on it, and I would understand better, and I would empathize with their lack of understanding or human connection better. Once I come back to India and I engage with my regular surroundings, it changes the way I react to things. I am more grateful, I think, with people who give us directions, who make eye contact with me, who are not looking at me like some creature. And many such instances such as this, that are good and bad. Strangers with whom you can talk and talk your heart out. There is somebody in Iceland who knows everything about me. Every dark secret about me. I think his name is Bjorn or something like that.
Quick.
Bjartmar.
That's Facebook Bjorn. Stalk him on Facebook.
Bjartmar. He's a postman who's also a marathon runner. Brilliant. And they have the opposite. They see a person who's brown and they are gravitating towards that person because they're done with looking at pale people. So they actually come and hang out at hostels. The people in that tiny little village that I would say, because for 40-50 kilometers you don't see a human, and then you go to this tiny little town and there are 100 people and it scares you. These people engage in travel hostels to meet people in the kitchen and talk to them about their countries because they can't easily access other. So there is that as well. They want to talk to you more. They touch your hair. Like how we might think about how blonde hair is. As a child, I used to think, what does blonde hair feel like? They touch my black hair and see, what does it feel like to have brown skin? Oh, it's so soft. I'm like, you think? This is weird. This is Biyat Smart talking to me. And that person knows everything. So why is it that I can't tell you all my dark secrets?
Because you're going to see me again.
I'm going to see you again.
We were talking to Prasanna earlier in the lounge, and she used this wonderful portmanteau word. She said, happy anonymity. And I think that's what travel does, right? When you go somewhere and you know this person's never going to see you again.
And it doesn't matter even if like you're not a celebrity or a non-known face. You don't have to be a celebrity to crave anonymity. When you travel and you get to, again, like I can tell you several instances. Oh dear Lord, I've forgotten his name. This guy, I took a bus from Toronto to Chicago to catch my flight from there. I don't know how that all happened, but I did take that. So the 15 hours became 22 hours because we were held at the border and my 3 big suitcases were opened up and it just delayed everyone. So this guy was really helpful. He was helping me carry the bags and put it back in the back of the bus. And I had the same issue. I was like, I don't know, why is he being so helpful? And I realized that kind of creeps into you, your experiences. For the next 20 hours that I traveled with him, we had the best conversation about life, about forgiveness. He taught me the Wim Hof breathing technique and whatnot. And he knows everything. And he tried to get in touch with me eventually, and he's still a wonderful friend of mine. Like, it's been only 6-7 months, but he's a teacher in Chicago in a small school. But it's a great leveler traveling, that we've connected on our personal issues that we have with people. Like my best friend, I have an issue with my best friend, he knows everything about it now. And these are experiences that we don't quite give enough credit for changing us. Because we are so comfortable in our space, we don't really take that chance. Like that day, I was not in a good mood because when he started talking to me, I was like, please don't talk to me right now. I just want to be alone. I want to sleep. My back hurts. But he still kept offering me a banana or water. And I was like, I don't know if it's mixed with something. I'm so negative. But thank God he persisted, that he's a wonderful friend. I have so many friends that I have made, probably who know a lot more about me than you do, because they're in different continents. And it doesn't matter even if it's different continent. I go to Agra and I tell people I'm a teacher. They don't know I'm an actor. They don't need to know I'm an actor because that changes the way they talk to me. So so anonymity is a superpower that I definitely know for a fact, for the obvious reason that I'm an actor and I'm recognized everywhere. But it can also do wonders for people who are not seen in the public eye. Because that's therapy for you.
No, and I have a friend who tells me that travel is the easiest way to try out new personalities because, because, if you live here, obviously, we go out in packs, sort of like animals, we hang out with our friends. And let's say you don't like pineapple and one day you feel like, I'm going to try a pineapple shake. And your friend will tell you, since when did you like pineapple? You can't even, right? So automatically you feel, yeah, maybe I'm being fake today. Maybe I'm trying out a new personality. But guess what? You can just go to Agra and drink all the pineapple milkshakes you want.
No one's going to judge me.
Pineapple lassi, and then come back and say, no,
I still
had
drink
this,
strawberry. This happened to me in many of the countries. I try different personalities. It's so much fun. So much fun. I'm sometimes from North India, sometimes I'm from Tamil Nadu, even if they won't make me speak in Tamil.
You never know.
Yeah, and each day I try and, it's basically acting in films, but in like life. Or I could try out different personalities. Sometimes I don't like my life. I can pretend I'm married. Test it out for a day, I don't like it. Next day I can be single. So this is fun. It's fun, but it's also a human experiment. This is funny when you listen to it, but all these things that I do comes from a space of desperation to try and find my truth. Find not the new me, but the real me. And the real me is full of contradictions, and somehow when you stay in one place, you're not allowed your contradictions. You're just not. Because that's people, all of us, including me. I don't like it when my friend starts changing because now I have to change to accommodate that change. And that's not comfortable. Let's just stay where we are. The status quo is somehow very comforting.
It's an effort, right? I mean, you absolutely can live in contradiction and say, I don't like pineapple in anything, but I love this perfume which has pineapple in it. But you have to convince everyone that, yeah, suddenly you're quirky and kooky,
Yeah.
and
this is not, again, like, I want to tell you guys that it can be the tiniest bit of travel. Just going to the library can be a travel. It's an act of rebellion, really, for my friend who has 2 kids, who has not left her house for 5 years, like literally not gone out just without her husband, to go to the library saying that today you can just stay with the kids for 2 hours, I'm just going to go to the library and come. And it was overwhelming. She had a mental breakdown just going alone and not having someone touch her, spit on her, or hug her, or hold her hand. She didn't know what to do with herself. And I'm not just going to limit this to just women. There are men who don't know how it is without people asking them things. Where are we going? All those things. That comes from the other side of the conversation, which I probably know less about. So little by little, if we make travel essential to our daily life, and travel can mean anything. Like I said, it can be to the grocery stores, really, to library, staying in the grocery store for a little longer than you need to. Might be your meditation, might be your one way to ask yourself the question you're not allowed to ask when you're surrounded by your familiar space.
I think that's what happens, as she said, right? When we are in our own surrounding, when we are in our own familiar space, we don't actually notice perhaps how we are and notice others. Even in a grocery store, I'm sure we're constantly bumping into people from other cultures and other languages and other backgrounds than us. But somehow we're so consumed by our own life, we don't have time for that. But I have to pick up this packet of tofu, right? I don't have time for this beautiful stranger who walks in and says, oh, where can I find cheese? You're like, don't bother
my
me,
tofu,
I want
I
my
need to
tofu.
get back.
Yeah, I think when we travel, because our sole purpose is to do nothing, perhaps, or it's to see Agra, or see the Taj Mahal, whatever it is, even then, it's just, I have nothing else to do. My job is to see. How long will that take? 5 seconds? I saw. And then you sit and watch people, or you watch yourself and you realize, oh my, I'm quite loud, aren't I? You feel that in Europe. I've never felt that I interrupted people more than I felt the year in London. And I thought, my God, I'm an interrupter, aren't I? Because everyone's so polite. Everyone waits their turn.
That's annoying.
All right. I had a signal somewhere that said 15 minutes to go. So I'm going to ask you a quick rapid fire.
Yes.
And then we'll have the floor open if that's all right with you guys. Yeah? All right. I love these. I hate these. I have a complicated relationship with rapid fire, but I'm just going to go for it.
Me too. Brevity is not my strongest suit. So, is it a
As
yes?
evident from our title.
Yes. Mouthful.
All right. Do you travel solo often?
Yes.
All right. Do you travel solo inside India?
Very less, I must admit. North India, a lot more. Kerala, much less, but because it is difficult for me to go somewhere without being recognized. It used to be that I was Clark Kent and Superman, that if I wear my glasses and I go somewhere, people used to not recognize me at all. But then my director Anjali Menon used that in a movie, and that look went out, and so now everyone even like recognizes me with the glasses. Now I take off my glasses, maybe. But I think, yeah, I do. I think for me to leave the country was important. Because I didn't want to be recognized. Anonymity was one of the things that I wanted. But like I said, if I go to Sikkim or any of the northeastern part, Bhutan even, that's not our country, but still, any of those places, I'm just one of the many there. I'm yet to explore more of South India, and that's not something I'm proud of, but I will.
All right. Any discovery you made on a trip? A cuisine, a dish, a style of painting that you thought, my God, I can't believe I lived without this all this time?
Oh, yes, yes. And not to take away from what I've seen in India, but I have to say that my love or this strange connection to paintings came with Van Gogh in Amsterdam, Van Gogh Museum. So I've been traveling to Amsterdam for the last 4 years. Every time I go to Europe, I make sure that Amsterdam is a stop, not for what they're famous, like not that, no. But paintings. So
We believe you.
Yeah, you guys better. Van Gogh Museum, though, is so beautiful, the way it's been curated, that it's an experience. So I go in the morning and I'm there till the evening. I don't need to go anywhere else because there's a coffee shop and you're taken care of. But just to sit in front of the paintings, every year I see the paintings different because I've changed. And I think the first time I used to sit and I think it must be evident now that I am a weeper. I sob for anything. So I just sat there and it didn't matter that this girl was sitting on that bench looking at this painting of a vase with flowers and crying, because there's this whole story written about what Van Gogh was going through. There was some kind of a connection between me and Van Gogh and his mental struggle or something. And there is a space where you can actually start painting like him, like watch his painting and try to attempt to, which was very meditative for me. So I do that almost every year and make sure that I travel to, if I travel to Paris, I go to Shakespeare and Co. Any of you ever traveling to Paris, please go there. I believe in reincarnation strictly because of this. I think I did live there at some point. Must have been a housemaid or something in that building. I felt that energy when I was on the second floor. It's right next to Notre Dame, and I don't care for Notre Dame enough. I'm like, okay, that's there. But this bookshop, with Ernest Hemingway, everyone has come there and sat there and written books and read books, and the books are there. There's a vintage selection. So these are two places, I'll tell you, I can never, and Florence, of course, like all these places have these museums or bookshops which have now become home for me. That if I think about very long day at work, I'll be like, I can just go to Shakespeare and Co at some point. That just makes me happy.
Have you made any close friends on a trip you're still in touch with?
Yes. The very first trip, I was sitting in Amsterdam in a hostel right next to the red light area, street, and that was the Super Bowl night. And I still don't know what's the big deal about Super Bowl. I'm very bad with sports. It was a Super Bowl night, and all the Americans in that area would come to this particular pub that's right under my hostel, because this is the only pub that will stay up like 4 till their cutoff time is 2 a.m., but they would keep it open till 4, 5 a.m. for them to watch. I'm sitting alone in a table for 4, having my chicken wings and rum and coke. And I'm like, this is sad. It's 8:30. I don't have anyone to talk to. I should just go to sleep. 8:30 in Amsterdam, I'm going to sleep. This is sad. So I literally Google how to be alone in a crowded pub. I typed it in my phone, and I'm reading articles about how to deal with loneliness when you're traveling in a space which is bustling with people. Some weird thing. And currently my best friend Amanda walks in and says, "Is this seat taken?" And she sits there and she starts talking to me. It's almost as if the universe said, "Chalo, le lo, here's one for you." We become instant friends. The next day we find this girl sitting in the same table, at the same table, and we said, she's sitting alone, let's go talk to her. And that's Teresa, my other best friend. And the three of us have been chuddy buddies ever since. We have traveled India together. We have traveled other countries together now. Every single year we make sure that we travel one different country together. I've also done couch surfing a lot, which has taught me a whole nother, aspect of how to live in another country. You're living in a local's house. Yeah. You're sharing space with them. So I would cook Indian food for them, and they'd cook so that becomes, and so I have 2 friends, Chilean friends, whom I met in Barcelona, and they come to India now, and we don't even know how we met anymore. We don't talk about how we met. We just are friends, and it doesn't feel like we haven't known each other for a lifetime. Okay. So as much as I like talking to strangers and telling them weird stories about me, there are these people who know everything about me and still are part of my life.
Okay. This has been something I've wanted to ask everyone, and I do ask everyone. Where do you think, which country, which city, which place do you think women are freest?
Oh, dear Lord. I would say it's a tie between Sweden and Iceland. I talked about occupying space. There's a way women sit. They just sit. And in the act of sitting and the act of just being, it can make you a little uncomfortable because they are exuding their being, their ability to just be. I'm sure they have issues. I'm not saying they don't have issues, but they definitely do not have the issue of being aware of their gender all the time. Like my mother had to teach me how to walk through a particular street, a very busy street in Trivandrum, how to walk and not to window shop. I was in 4th grade. And she used to say that eyes on the hands ahead of you. So I used to literally waltz through the streets because the hands could either graze you or grab you or pinch you, that even now I find myself a little clenched every time I sit anywhere in public. And that's like a muscle memory. It's not even that I'm afraid anymore, but I'm not relaxed. I'm not sitting like this. And that I saw in them.
I'm going to stop you there because we have 5 minutes to go, and I'm sure people have plenty of questions.
I can talk.
Sir. This gentleman here in the second row.
The second row, over here. Oh, yeah, he's looking.
Quickly, please, everyone. Thank you.
Sorry I
about
ate
that.
up your time. I never thought you
Good morning, ma'am. So first of all, kudos to you for being one of the few actors with a backbone. While many kept silent,
Thank you.
while many kept silent or made ambiguous statements, you had boldly stood by the Sabrimala verdict. So my question is, you mentioned that travel is therapeutic. So during your darkest times, such as when you received a lot of flack for your comments on a popular actor's films, like his fans and all, they ravaged your social media, and in one of your interviews, you had described them as minions. So during those times, have you ever considered travel as an escapism, and how do you stay composed?
It's a very good. Thank you so much. What's your name?
I'm Adrian.
Adrian. Adrian, lovely name. Thank you for asking that question. I'll quickly answer that. I found refuge in work at the time. I was doing this Malayalam movie called Kude, and Anjali Menon being my friend, and I love her. I just thought that I don't have to worry about anything. I can just go to Ooty and be the character. And that always is a refuge, as much as travel is. But after Kude was done, I decided I couldn't work. So what this this absolute attack towards me did to me was that I was very strong while I was dealing with them, but the aftermath of it, like, you become really cynical. So I wanted to travel. I just did not want to stay in India or in Kerala. I just wanted to leave. But I traveled, and I realized this time when I traveled, it was more of an escapism than a therapeutic thing. I didn't travel alone anymore. I traveled the whole of the 2 months that I traveled in 2018. I was with people, which was good in different ways, but it felt like escapism. So I reflect on my travel after I come back.
I'm going to stop you there because,
yes,
I'm pretty sure we're close
escapism.
to...
One word
Thanks for that,
answers.
yeah.
No, okay.
Any other questions? Sorry, we're very close to... Yeah.
Quick one word answers. Rapid fire, guys, come on.
Hi.
Yes.
So I just wanted to make a point. You mentioned about...
It's okay,
blanket.
relax, breathe.
Sorry. So, because I think one of the main issues is that as women, we are not taught or encouraged to be alone, and we ourselves feel, at least for me, I feel afraid what I am when I'm alone, because I'm defined by what people think of me and what they are. And one other question you mentioned about trying out different personalities while traveling. I'm different when I'm at home in Trivandrum. I'm different when I'm in Chennai. So, and many a times it comes across in films that it's one shade that you see of a woman. It's either, white, pure, or black. What can we do, as you, as artists, can do to show that, shades, that you're gray? You can be good as well as bad. I am not completely a good person, neither am I an evil spirit. What can artists do for that?
My God, that's such a complex question. Quick answer, because she's already here, we're late.
It's the pressure. Okay, I'd say this one thing. As an artist, I make sure that when I read a script or I take up a script, I make sure that along with the writer, of course, I ask questions so we can infuse the grayness in it. Like for example, Samira in Takeoff, if you've seen the film, our producers and director, we had a discussion that we have a feeling people may not like Samira because she doesn't smile. She's very rude. She's very rude. She spits fire and venom, because she doesn't have the time to be nice, But she should be empathized with as well. So that's what I try to do when I work with directors, is that I try to bring a little more realistic portrayal of people with all their characteristic traits. So I think we should keep trying that.
Julie says one more. So one last question from this side. No one? Okay, this
No
lady
one's on this
here.
side. Okay.
Hi,
Yes.
I'm bringing back you to the cinema.
Uh-huh.
So when you're talking about cinema and art as a consumable product or culture
Yes.
as a consumable product, aren't we looking at as travel as privilege not in terms of class but as culture itself? Because there are nomadic communities who keep traveling, and for them it's part of their culture. So then, should cinema or Malayalam cinema, should it build a language where you begin to talk about privilege not in terms of class, where women travel for their soul-seeking purpose or whatever,
Yeah.
but then bring the marginalized content or their cultures into the forefront?
Oh, absolutely. I do agree with you completely. That's like my short answer. I would have to talk more about it. But the narratives don't have to be about a woman traveling to find herself or a man traveling to find himself. It can be like, for example, a nomadic community traveling to do what they usually do, whatever migration or anything else, for a culture, for a festival that they do. And that can be a human experience in how they interact with each other. And that also is travel. Like I said, going to a temple can be a travel, or the grocery store can be a travel. That can also be a travel film. So the idea of travel film, I think we need to just give it an elastic band and like just stretch it out and make travel more accessible as a concept itself, is what I would say. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you
Thank
guys
you
so much. You were a wonderful
Now
audience. Thank you.
Everyone's come in late and just joined. Terribly sorry, but we are done talking our hearts out. Not done, actually. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, dear guests, for that very fun conversation. I'm sure a lot of us also found it very inspiring. Our next session begins shortly. Request members of the audience to remain seated. If you wish to leave, kindly use the back door and not crowd our guests here, because we have very little time before the next session starts. Thank you.